All right, you guys, we are back. It's your boy Q, and up next we have why Drake and Lil Yachty might have beef. Shout out to Rapaholics for the video. Yeah, if you guys haven't heard, Lil Yachty unfollowed Drake and then immediately followed him when he saw that the internet realized he did that, which honestly shouldn't be a surprise because the internet knows all this stuff. If you even follow anybody of any importance, the internet will expose that and put it on like social media within minutes, fam. This isn't the first time. Because of that, people are running again with the theory that him and Yachty have beef.
Guys, this just gets sadder and sadder every day. Lil Boat has seemed to join the hip-hop Avengers in the fight for the elimination of Mr. Aubrey Drake Drizzler Oviho Graham. Yes, one of Drake's former best friends, the guy who taught Drake how to paint his nails, one of the pivotal rappers in teaching Drake how to sound like he's from Atlanta, and someone who...
You can't give that to Yachty, even though Yachty has definitely had a huge influence in Drake's sound as of late. Drake's been around these Atlanta artists for a very long time and definitely been influenced by them. And honestly, so has the rest of rap. I feel like as far as production and the way people flow, like, dude, I feel like everyone right now is influenced by Atlanta.
Drake has gone on record saying is one of his best friends in the industry. Despite their massive age gap, with Drake pushing 38 years old and Lil Yachty only being 25 years old, these two rappers recently have seemed to be very close friends, but it looks like the tables have turned and they now might be beefing. So in this video, we're going to figure out exactly what's going on here because, first of all, what could Drake have possibly done to make so many people within the industry hate him? And
I feel like that's not, it might be a secret to some, but it's probably got to be the worst kept secret. The dude smashes like his colleagues' wives, and that for him, that's like a big revenge plot for him. And I feel like a lot of it does stem from like when he was first coming out, he was definitely seen as lame. There was a lot of artists like when he was first coming up that would call him corny. The DMX, like all the people of that ilk would call him corny, and he just happened to blow the fuck up. And now that he has all this power, all this money, it's like who's the best revenge is smashing all their shorties. And the dude doesn't just limit himself to the rappers' wives, like. Allegedly, he's done this to like execs. It's not a secret either that he like did that to like DJ Drama, and I'm pretty sure that's why those like references got leaked originally. Like the Rico record, the first references that got leaked was basically stemming from that, which is crazy. Dude, it seems like it's your MO, fam. So you could obviously see why the industry really isn't rocking with you right now. We really didn't see anybody defend you like that. He had Yachty with a few statements, but he backed off that really quickly.
And second of all, for someone like Yachty, who has given Drake so much, I mean, Yachty has ghostwritten several songs for Drake over the last few years. He gave Drake the confidence to walk outside with Hello Kitty nail polish on. He executive produced Drake's comeback album, Her Loss, with 21 Savage. And he's basically been Drake's cheerleader for the last 2 years. So if any rapper in the industry is going to be beefing with Drake, Lil Yachty would be the last person you'd expect to be doing so. But that very well might be the case. So let's peel back the layers here, let's unpack all the facts. And I have a little quiz for you guys. I'm going to reveal the answer at the end of this video, but what do Lil Yachty, Lil Wayne, and Travis Scott all have in common? Stick around to the end of this video for the...
Well, they obviously all got big records with them. And honestly, those are all the people that might have a beef with him. Because allegedly there's an inside man. That's definitely been a rumor that's been like theorized and has been running rampant.
Answer and drop a comment if you think you know the answer already.
There's a lot of little nuggets in both of their disses that if it
love nuggets.
wasn't for these breakdowns and salute to, guys like this, Rapaholics, because I think they directly get it.
Yeah, just to give you guys a little backstory here, Drake and Lil Yachty have become very close over the last few years. Drake has been spotted in more pictures and videos with Lil Yachty than his own son. Drake first brought up Lil Yachty on a 2016 track with Gucci Mane, where he rapped, "Shout out Yachty, but this ain't a little boat." Then they connected on Instagram. Lil Yachty made an appearance in the 21 Savage and Drake music video Sneaking back in 2017. Then he actually executive produced an entire Drake and 21 Savage album in 2022 titled Her Loss. He actually also ghost wrote 2 records for Drake off that album titled Back Outside Boys and Jumbotron Poppin'. Drake...
Yeah, and Jumbotron Poppin', the reference came out for that record too. With Yachty rapping it.
Has barely done interviews this decade, but he did give Lil Yachty one of the only interviews he's done in years back in 2022, and the two also did interviews with Bobby Altov right around the same time as each other. Right around that time, Bobby Altov was asked about her interview with Lil Yachty, and she gave a pretty questionable answer. She basically said he was awkward and weird, which is ironic because her whole persona is basically acting awkward within her interviews. And for one of her...
Yeah, but honestly, I think Bobby Altov, that like persona is definitely something that hams up for the camera. If you guys seen like the behind the scenes of her shooting some like shots with Elite Chopper, you could kind of see after they finish filming, she kind of like relaxes, and you can see like, all right, this is the real you. But when something's working, it's working. So she's gonna run with that gimmick while it's hot. But I definitely feel like she hams it up. Like when she does like the twerking videos, she makes it extra Tina Belcher-ish. You know what I mean?
Her first major interviews being with Lil Yachty, it kind of seemed like a slap in the face that she would then go on to talk about him in a negative light after he was one of the key people that put her on in the beginning. And as a result, both Drake and Lil Yachty pulled their interviews off of Bobby Altov's channel. And we don't necessarily know if anything else went on behind the scenes, but it plays an important role later on in the story that both Drake and Lil Yachty had interviews with Bobby. Then she goes on to say some pretty bad stuff about Lil Yachty, and very, very shortly after, Drake just pulls his interview with her. He was definitely loyal to Yachty. The two did another collaboration in 2023, and Drake started dressing exactly like Yachty, which is what prompted Kendrick Lamar to reference Lil Yachty in his beef with Drake, as throughout his 6-minute assassination of Drake's character on Euphoria, where he painted a very ugly picture of the fact
Euphoria, because of Not Like Us, is hyper underrated.
That Drake has no true identity of his own. He steals from the culture, he's spiraling, and then rapping that Lil Yachty can't give Drake any swag. Things started looking very, very ugly. The beef started escalating, and Yachty was obviously dragged in the middle of it. And from there, we obviously know what happened. Drake dropped Family Matters, thinking that was the red button that was going to destroy Kendrick. He came out with crazy accusations about Kendrick, but Kendrick stomped on the whole moment just 30 minutes later when he released Meet the Grams, coming out with even crazier allegations against Drake, saying that he doesn't only have a son, but he's also been hiding a daughter from the world. Then he goes on to drop Not Like Us. It becomes a #1 hit, and from there he won, right? It was obviously over. He was the unanimous winner, and with dozens of artists hating Drake and Kendrick playing Drake's game and making a #1 hit record.
And those dozens of artists are just the ones that were vocal about it. There's probably a huge roster of people that do not rock with Drake. And all we have to do is just look at the fact that no one really stuck up for him like that.
Record that was also a diss record. Drake was obviously in a very tough spot, and at that moment, he needed his friends in the industry to be riding for him no matter what. He needed all the love he could get. Like, he started showing more attention to 21 Savage. He came out to his show, they did a collaboration together. Like, he needed to show that he was not a colonizer of Atlanta. He also brought Party Next Door out of the OVO sweatshop, standing.
A lot of it too is definitely like, dude, especially with all the uncertainty and all the like the backlash on anything you're doing, you kind of want to go back to people that you've had like great success with. He's made some great records with Party Next Door, you know? So it's like something that he can go to, that he feels comfortable with, that people love. The record with 21, obviously people do like that record. There was a lot of viral moments from that record, and people genuinely really like 21 Savage. So I could see why he's doing that. It's definitely a smart move. But yeah, the fact that he hasn't been seen with like Yachty is definitely very telling, because like Yachty over the last few years has definitely been a constant collaborator. But Yachty does give me like the type of vibe where like he's not gonna pull punches when it comes to like being honest. And I feel like if he feels something, he's gonna tell Drake. And we've all witnessed that Drake can get a little like petty when it comes to certain things like that, or get emotional and really feel let down by that disappointment.
Next to him more in the last 2 weeks than he has in the last 3-4 years, and announcing a collaboration album with Party Next Door coming soon. But one person who was noticeably missing next to Drake during his attempted comeback from that massive loss that he took was Lil Yachty. We haven't seen the two together in months since the beef, and before the beef they were always spotted together. And there might be a reason for that. See, during the week that Kendrick dropped Not Like Us, Lil Yachty did an interview which is now deleted offline, and he was asked about the beef and he had a lot to say. Yachty said that a pivotal moment of the beef was actually Kendrick releasing Meet the Grams, because it absolutely stepped on the moment of Family Matters. He said that Meet the Grams was very, very well put together, but it wasn't.
Of course, the record was fire. Everything about like the release of Meet the Grams was perfect. The fact that it shifted the tone, dude, just the instrumental alone was definitely very ominous. The type of allegations, dude, it was like some spooky shit. So like for that to come out half an hour after Family Matters, honestly was probably the best move Kendrick could have made, because who knows what happens if you let Family Matters like sit and breathe and let it build momentum. The fact that he released a half an hour, now you have people jumping to the other record to see what the comeback is, and now they're going to stay on that record. So like, yeah, it was just like perfect timing, honestly.
Was incredible because the daughter stuff that Kendrick was accusing Drake of was a lie. He also said that both guys are great, as in Kendrick.
Also, I'll say this. We live in a day and age where stuff doesn't have to be true for people to run with it. It doesn't have to be true at all. We're seeing it not just in music, we see it in politics. we see it in things all around the world.
Lamar and Drake are both great guys, and that they didn't have enough ammo on each other, so they had to find crazy allegations against each other to add validity to their diss tracks. So Kendrick went with the whole PDF angle, while Drake went with the whole women abuser thing, and both of them basically had no proof. He also said that Drake's been dealing with hate his whole career, and he's never truly been liked, which is ironic because Drake has done his best to show us that he still has friends within the industry ever since this beef happened, but Lil Yachty has been someone who hasn't been spotted with Drake. And the most interesting thing that Yachty said in this whole interview is that the beef actually ended with Not Like Us, and that it's a banger, and there's pivotal moments of every beef, and the pivotal main moment of
obviously leaving out the Heart Part 6, but it's honestly because that record just sounds like a white flag. Even in that record, you can see like, dude, the tone of a record does really so much, and having it stick and having it like really like do what it's intended. It sounded defeated. It sounded like, oh, you're disappointed because he's lying. It just sounded like you were looking for a way out, and just the whole like, all right, if you want to tell the truth, that's when we'll re-engage. That's like, dude, it sounds like a cop out, you know. And expectations are being set by like the people you have speaking for you. I feel like having Act be your mouthpiece during that beef, like pause, dude. I feel like it was the worst look because Drake does really well with these surprise releases. So when you have somebody telegraphing everything, like, dude, you lose that mystery, you lose the aura. Like, he's telling people it's going to be like the hottest record ever, and it gets out, and it's not that. Now people just think it's whack instead of just letting it go out and seeing what's up. You're actually doing Drake a disservice because now when it comes out and it's not exactly what they expect it to be, because everyone builds up these things in their head, now that it's just mid or it's whack. If it's mid, it is whack nowadays. Like, average is not good, at least to most people. You probably shouldn't have been texting Ack every detail because, yeah, he's going to take it to stream and you're using him to get the word out. But at that point, you don't really need to do that. Like, I feel like you really messed up by telegraphing it. And now with all the captions and subs he's been doing, like after the beef, he's doing the same thing. Do you think Kendrick is not preparing? So as soon as like Drake drops something, he doesn't have anything ready to do the same thing he did with Not Like Us? Like, fam, you can't underestimate somebody twice because if you do, now it's 2 out of 3 and they won the war, fam. There's not really too much you're going to do to be able to change people's mind after that.
This one was the record Not Like Us. It's funny that he says that because Drake actually responded to Not Like Us with his record The Heart Part 6, which was basically a desperate attempt at defending all the allegations that Kendrick threw at him. Lil Yachty
like
in this
a white
interview is
flag to
completely
people.
ignoring that record and saying that the beef ended with Not Like Us, not that it ended with The Heart Part 6. And just like the Bobby Altov interview, this interview was mysteriously taken down. Lil Yachty, who was known to constantly defend Drake, didn't really seem to have anything positive to say about Drake's performance within this beef or even try to make any attempt at defending him. And when a Drake fan account on Twitter reposted clips of this interview basically saying that Lil Yachty wasn't doing enough to defend Drake after all the defending that Drake has done on Lil Yachty, because if you guys didn't know, in Drake's attempt at connecting more to the youth, he's adopted a lot of Lil Yachty's sound and style into his music and his fashion choices. Obviously we know this because Lil Yachty has written songs for Drake and because Kendrick even said that Lil Yachty can't give him any swag. And Drake has gotten a lot of criticism for this, but always seems to defend Lil Yachty as
I mean, that could be a reason why, like, Yachty is getting taken off of that Mr. Hotspot sample record. Like, yeah, people, like, honestly received it a lot better than the other records he's been putting out. But, yeah, let's get, like, Yachty off there because as soon as he's on there, people are going to complain that they don't want him on there. Maybe them dropping it was all part of marketing. Maybe they already had, like, the clean version in the works, and this is a way, like, they're having this type of talk where it's like, oh, we could potentially not clear it. It's just going to bring more interest to the record. It could definitely be where all this is planned out, you know? And Mr. Hotspot's getting a fat bag to just go with the narrative that, like, that it was never going to be released if they didn't do this, even though they already had this, like, agreed to. That there probably would be, like, a clean version as well. It's definitely crazy. In this day and age, man, anything is plausible.
As an artist and as a person, and defends his choices of collaborating with Lil Yachty and incorporating his sound into his own music. But when the tables turned and things were looking down for Drake, Yachty didn't seem to come to his defense. So the fan page was basically calling him out for that, and Lil Yachty...
Oh, he did. But when he did, look at the backlash he got. I'm pretty sure they lit up all his pages because already a lot of people don't rock with him.
Responded by saying, "You're making things what they're not. Everybody and their mama know what side I'm on. You fans be overdoing stuff. I didn't go into any specifics of the songs. Stop trying to spin a narrative." Even though he did go into specifics by calling Meet the Grams a good track and saying that Not Like Us was a banger. The fan page responded by saying, "Man, get the F out my face with this BS. I simply reposted your own words. You said you don't think Drake won or lost. You have respect for the guy who called him a certified PDF file and said that the song is banging. What kind of friend are you? You stayed silent watching your friend's character get attacked. You actually made it worse with that interview. Pick a side or shut up." Lil Yachty responded by saying, "It wasn't my beef to speak on. What do you want me to do?"
Yo, people go ham on the internet, fam. The dude went off on him. It's crazy when people of this ilk like respond to people, to just random people, whether it's Twitter or freaking Instagram or X now. I guess you should call it Twitter now. But like whether it's any of that stuff, it's just wild to me that like you do give it power when you do that. It's like now you're arguing with this person, which is what they wanted, and now you just look wild. At that point, just put a LOL and just move forward, fam.
Jump on a feature? I said I felt like nobody won. The whole thing was stupid to begin with. When I support him, I'm deriding. When I don't say anything, I switched up. The internet stuff is so lame. You can't win. It's funny to note that this same account that Lil Yachty started...
I want to say that whole incident, didn't it cause him to say that he was going to take a break off like the internet period, which I know it's going to be impossible, probably just off social media.
Beefing with on Twitter, also tweeted out something basically calling out Kendrick for being absent in the parenting of his son, because that's an angle that Kendrick used, saying that Drake is absent in his own son's life. And this fan account basically said, "So who was raising your child while you were out cheating on your wife with white women?" This was an attack on...
Yo, these people are so angry, and it's crazy because is there even any actual proof on that narrative? I don't think so. I really don't think so. Like something would have definitely came out. It's just wild that people will run with these narratives and be so aggressive, and it's wild, fam.
Kendrick, and Lil Yachty actually liked the tweet, but
Heavily
just a couple days
invested.
later, he said that he only liked it by accident, emphasizing again that he wasn't taking any side within this
Nah, fam, you gotta stand on business. You know what you clicked, fam.
beef. It's also important to note that before Drake and Lil Yachty became best friends, Lil Yachty actually said that Kendrick Lamar, in his opinion, was the best rapper of all time. He's also done interviews with Schoolboy Q, showing that he has ties with Kendrick's record label and has had deep respect for...
I feel like he still believes that, but he also values the relationship he has with Drake. Who knows? Maybe like Yachty told Drake that Kendrick is better. You never know. Yachty definitely gives the vibe that he'd say that unironically.
Kendrick's artistry in the past. But because he's publicly been Drake's best friend over the last few years, and Drake rushed to his defense with the Bobby Althoff stuff, it seemed like it was only natural that Lil Yachty should be defending Drake within this whole beef, since everyone else turned on him. And it seemed like Lil Yachty agreed with this, because a couple months later, he hopped on an interview with Andrew Schultz, and he said his biggest regret of the beef is that he actually commented on it, showing that either he feels bad that he said anything negative about Drake, or potentially Drake privately told him that he didn't appreciate Yachty's comments. And there's a couple very interesting things within this interview that made it hard to decipher how Lil Yachty truly felt about this whole situation. Firstly, he seemed to give very politically correct answers anytime Drake or the beef was mentioned. He didn't say anything bad about Drake, but he also didn't go into great length about how much he loves Drake or how great Drake is like he used to do. And he seemed to keep his answers brief in an attempt to move on and switch.
Well, the thing is, when you're doing a flagrant interview, already whatever Yachty's going to say about Drake is going to be a huge story. Doing it on that podcast, where honestly, I listen to Flagrant, and I know that they're about the content. They want you to say the most extreme thing, because then they clip it, and it goes viral, and they're the ones monetizing off of it. Those videos do monster numbers. And Schultz is definitely aware of that. I'm pretty sure they were pressing on that topic, obviously. And smart of Yachty to not like engage, because it definitely seems like the backlash definitely did affect him, or just Drake had something to say about it.
Topics. Also, his tone seemed a little just different talking about Drake than he was when he was talking about random topics like women or bears. We're not going to base anything based off that, but just something to take note of, that he seemed very enthusiastic talking about regular stuff, but he showed no confidence talking about the beef with Kendrick or really anything Drake related. He seemed to try to brush off all those topics. He also said he stopped bringing up the beef to Drake because he was telling Drake a lot of negative stuff other people were saying about him, and he realized Drake was very removed.
You see, that's what it is. He's probably bringing them up. He's probably not just bringing them up. He's probably like corroborating some of the stuff. Like, cause fam, Drake. But the thing is, if Drake is really so far removed and trying to move on, then all the subtle jabs and just trolling, I don't think that comes with that. So it's either you're removed and you're trying to get away from that, or you're engaging again. You can't really have both, you know?
From it and didn't really want to focus on it. Yachty also, funny enough, said that he's been pushing Drake to get back into acting and said that he would play a great mob boss. In my opinion, he's been playing a great mob boss in his music ever since he released Mob Ties. And the most interesting part of this whole thing is that Yachty said that him and Drake actually did a podcast together.
I mean, honestly, it would probably be the smartest thing. Take a break. It's not like he hasn't acted before. Like the dude, and even occasionally now we do get like a SNL clip or cameo in a movie. With him being Drake and the talent he does have as an actor, I feel like around the world people really aren't as invested. So if they saw him in something, they would watch it just because Drake's in it. His career is not done, guys. But it is pretty funny that like Yachty is like suggesting him do something else that's not music right now. Because he can see the temperature, fam. He's a product of the internet. He's saying he's going to take a break, but the fact that he wants to take a break is because he's so into the internet. He's seeing all this stuff. He's definitely seeing what like the culture has been saying and feeling. But like I said, it may not be a dumb move. It might be something that he could flourish in for right now. And who knows? Maybe give it some time. People will like miss you again, and you could drop a record a la Will Smith. The fact that Drake has basically been primarily music only his whole career. Yeah, you see him in stuff here and there, like I said, like those SNL skits. But the dude's been primarily a rapper the last 15 years. Like, so even though I do feel like he has experience acting, it's gonna be weird for him making that transition back because he has been so focused on just music for the last 15 years. Putting out records and going on tours has definitely made him hundreds of millions of dollars. But doing something else is definitely gonna be a little different. But maybe it's the break he needs.
But because of the whole quote-unquote Great War, it never came out. But let's really think about it, right? See, ever since this whole quote-unquote Great War has ended, Drake has done nothing calculated or careful with any of his moves to try to make.
Well, the thing is, it's a calculation even if it's wrong. So I definitely think he's talking to his team and he's talking to people, and like this is their strategy. Like, let's put stuff out. So there's a strategy, but it's definitely something very foreign to how he moves. But I get it when people say he's really throwing darts at a board. But I really do think this guy's a major act. He's not just doing stuff whenever he wants. At the end of the day, it's still a business, and there's a lot of people that have invested a lot of money in him.
A comeback. He's done about 10 songs since this beef ended, and aside from dropping tons of songs, he's also dropped hours and hours of random footage of him in the studio, him on tour, even footage of him and Lil Yachty together. So if they have this podcast together, what would be stopping Drake from releasing it if he's already released hours and hours of footage and tons of songs since the whole beef ended? I don't think it's exactly a valid reason to not drop this interview just because this.
Well, I feel like if you drop an interview, I think it's going to be a bunch of people that are going to put in the comments, why isn't he talking about the beef? Not knowing that this was recorded prior to the beef. It may just be that if they're going to put out an interview, they want something current. Because I don't think Drake really shies away from like talking about stuff like this. He's brought up Kendrick. He's brought up beefs with like The Weeknd and stuff that like obviously disappointed him. He does it in his interviews all the time. I don't think he really shies away from that. The dude has definitely released a lot of content. I feel like a lot of it is like the same reason why he probably went with like 21 and Party Next Door. Like, dude, you're trying to like remind people of like the great moments. It's like after a bad breakup, and they start sending you like pics and videos of when you guys were having a ball and stuff like that. Like, so you're seeing him record these like records that are like, for a lot of people it's their favorite records, but he's never done anything like that. So that's why people are looking at it like, yo, what's going on?
Beef happened since Drake has already been dropping random songs and random footage for months now. If nothing has stopped him from dropping literally 100 gigabytes worth of footage, random Instagram account, what would be stopping him from dropping this interview with Lil Yachty? It was before the beef ever happened. It's not like Drake was commenting on anything beef related in that interview. And if he's already dropping new footage constantly, why would it not be the right time to drop?
Well, it's also just dated as hell now. Like, they're probably talking about things that are relevant to that time period, maybe. Especially if it's from before the beef. So maybe it's like, so it could just be like, all right, it doesn't make any sense to drop it now. And I feel like, honestly, like people are setting up crazy expectations waiting for this interview.
A random interview with Lil Yachty, especially when Lil Yachty said that it was a great interview. If anything, that would help him, not hurt him. But it's possible that maybe he feels like he needs to comment on the beef in his next official interview.
Yeah,
regardless, I just think it's very weird that he had no problem popping out with Yachty beforehand, but ever since Kendrick called him out for trying to steal Yachty's swag, he now doesn't want to release any podcasts that he has with him and hasn't really been standing next to him since Yachty made these comments and the whole beef transpired. Around that same time, Lil Yachty also sent Kai Cenat an unreleased record with him and Drake. It's called Super Soak. It was actually a good record. Apparently, it couldn't be officially released because they couldn't clear the sample, but the guy who actually owned the sample said he had no problem releasing the record as long as they took out the cuss words in the record. So it seemed weird that they were creating this whole narrative that the song couldn't be released, and that's why Yachty was leaking it, even though the guy who owned the sample rights said that he had no problem with it coming out. But out of the 10 tracks,
Mr. Hotspot's whole deal was like, yo, like I work with kids, so can we get like a clean version? Which I don't think is like a huge thing to ask for. But a plausible theory would be that like all right, since Drake is in the mood of just like, all right, throwing darts at a board, maybe this is one of those darts. Let's like, all right, let's like release it. Let's see how the public reacts to it. And depending on what it is, we put it out. So if this record did have the potential in Drake and Yachty's eyes, I feel like any other artist would have probably made like a cleaner version. I'm pretty sure they would probably release an explicit version as well, but they were just asking for a clean version. And I'm not sure about like the details, whether like Mr. Hotspot wanted there just to be a clean version or a clean version as well as like the explicit version.
That Drake has already released since his attempted comeback from this massive loss that he took. That song with Lil Yachty did seem to garner the best response from fans and critics. And Drake has seemed to adopt this weird, unconfident strategy where he's been kind of testing out music, leaking it unofficially, and then only releasing it officially once he sees there's a positive response to it. So given the positive response that this song got, it only made sense that he maybe would now decide to officially release it. And that might be what he's about to do, which we'll touch on in just a moment, but it's also important to note that within the same time period, Lil Yachty also did an interview with Joe Budden. Joe Budden is someone who's been very, very critical of Drake for years. They had a very public feud back in 2016.
Obviously, Joe has been critical of Drake in the past and the present. He does give him his flowers too. Like, I do hear Joe praise like Drake as far as Drake with the melodies and stuff like that. He just doesn't want to hear tough guy Drake.
They also had a little back and forth after Drake released his most recent album, For All the Dogs. After the beef happened, Joe Budden publicly said that he felt like he was responsible for passing the baton to Kendrick to destroy Drake. So it's very strange that Lil Yachty's hesitant to release his interview with Drake, but he's okay with going on and doing an interview with Joe Budden, someone who Drake has had very...
Yeah, as far as that, when you're the number one like rapper, at least numbers wise, you're gonna have contenders try to come in and take your belt. And that's not just here, that's in every other industry. So, like, for Joe to be like, yo, I passed the baton, like, no, man, Drake was dissed by a bunch of people before and a bunch of people after, you know? So I kind of feel like that's kind of like, it's definitely very grandiose of him, but, like, I will say this, Joe can rap, but it really didn't affect Drake too much. He didn't even respond.
Public issues with. And coincidentally, they didn't bring up Drake once throughout Joe Budden, someone who Drake has had very public issues with. And coincidentally going on. So it's very strange that Lil Yachty's hesitant to release his interview with Drake, but he's okay with going on and doing an interview with Joe Budden, someone who Drake has had very public issues with. And coincidentally, they didn't bring...
Yeah, but like I said, Joe doesn't just bash Drake. That's a crazy narrative to run with.
Bring up Drake once throughout the entire interview, except for at one point where Joe Budden was about to talk about Drake's dominance in the streaming era. And before he brought up Drake's name, he told Yachty, I'm not going to bring this guy up and we're going to leave this subject right after this, but Drake, and then he proceeded to say whatever he said. It's just strange that he would bring up Drake in this light and obviously show that both him and Yachty were hesitant of mentioning Drake's name, but it's also strange in general that Lil Yachty did this interview with Joe Budden in the first place. But now, like I was saying before, Drake obviously...
That's not strange. Like I said, they've worked together before. They've done quite a number of interviews and stuff like that.
Heard the positive response that his Super Soak record with Lil Yachty got, and so he's deciding to officially release it now with a music video. Academics reported that the music video has been shot, he's going to release it soon, but it actually won't feature Lil Yachty anymore. This is also pretty confusing given the fact that it was initially Lil Yachty's record. He was the one who previewed it, he said that the sample couldn't get cleared so they couldn't release it, and that Drake had nothing to do with him leaking it to Kai Cenat. So why would Drake now remove Lil Yachty from the song and just release it on his own?
That might have just been the plan from the start. Like, they knew what they were going to do. It was just like, all right, let's like test the waters. But I don't think Yachty releases this record without like talking to Drake first. But who knows? I might be mistaken.
No. Along with doing an interview with Joe Budden, Lil Yachty also did a second interview with Bobby Altov and said that he has a lot of love for her and never gave us a conclusion on what ended up happening between him and her or her and Drake. He just basically said that she made some comments that he didn't like after...
I'm not gonna lie, them braids is super short, super tight, fam.
their first interview, but she ended up apologizing, so now he's back to loving her. And now these could all just be speculations, right? Obviously, him commenting on the beef, but not necessarily declaring a winner, doesn't necessarily mean that he's siding with Kendrick. It just means that he's not going to rush to Drake's defense like he used to do. But then he also went on to mention...
I mean, by saying the beef ended with Not Like Us and not the Hard Part 6, pretty much all the people really need to hear.
That he regretted commenting on the beef in general. He also started beefing with Drake fan accounts. He leaked one of Drake's records. Then Drake took the record, removed Lil Yachty off it. Now he's planning to release it on his own. And Yachty ends up doing interviews with two people who in the past have not gotten along with Drake, which would be Joe Budden and Bobby Altov. Again, all these things could just be weird coincidences, but what wasn't a coincidence was the fact that on August 20th, Lil Yachty ended up unfollowing Drake on Instagram, but then refollowed him right after fans noticed. Now, why I asked you guys at the beginning of this video...
It's crazy how that's like the ultimate sign of like disrespect. Unfollowing somebody on like social media. Like that legitimately ends relationships and friendships in the real world.
So what Lil Yachty, Lil Wayne, and Travis Scott all have in common is that they're all former collaborators of Drake, and they all might now have potential issues with
Yeah,
Drake. Before Kendrick
exactly.
Lamar released his verse on Like That with Future and Metro Boomin, Travis actually performed with Future and Metro Boomin at Rolling Loud and told them to play that record specifically. And on Drake's first diss track, Push Ups, many fans speculated that he was actually dissing Travis Scott in there with a line about baby mothers. He also had a massive Travis Scott head as a prop at one of his concerts, and he was seen shooting at it with his microphone.
That is wild.
With Lil Wayne, I just did a whole video breaking down why they might have issues. You could go check that out. It's the video that's been released right before this one. But again, it is important to note that at this point in time, all of this is speculation. We have no idea if these former...
Yeah, of course, we're all just theorizing at this point, and it's cool to like speculate and come up with our own little conspiracy theories in the rap world and stuff like that. Like they all kind of seem plausible, but yeah, it's cool. We're all just theorizing at the end of the day.
friends of Drake have now turned on him, and we have no idea how this will play out in the long term. But of all the people to be potentially beefing with Drake, Lil Yachty is definitely the most surprising, as Drake has rushed to his defense multiple times in the past. Lil Yachty has gassed Drake up and glazed him for the last few years. They've collaborated several times. Drake has gotten a lot of hate for incorporating Yachty's sound and style into his own music, but he's always defended his decision to do so. So it's very strange to see Lil Yachty comment on the beef the way he did. It's strange to see him unfollow Drake on Instagram, link up with a couple of Drake's ops. It's weird to see Drake take Lil Yachty off a record that Lil Yachty already leaked online, and it's weird that we haven't seen the two together since they were together.
I think you also got to remember that Joe Budden still is one of the bigger faces of media in hip hop. So it'd be dumb to not go like talk to him and not to go like, all right, interview him on your own platform. You know, you'd be wild not to do it. It's gonna get crazy clicks. People want to see what the conversation is, and that's just what happened. I can't really judge him for doing the interview with like Joe. This is not their first interview. I don't even think it was their second, but I know it was at least this one and like the Complex interview
so often before this whole beef, and Drake has been making very desperate attempts to link up with anyone who still gets along with him within the industry to show that not everyone hates him. But maybe Lil Yachty does, maybe he doesn't. We won't know until we know. For now, this is all we know. So let me know in the comments what you guys want to see next. If you think Drake and Lil Yachty are truly beefing, what comes next for Drake within this point of his career? Is he going to be able to make a comeback with so many enemies within the industry?
Well, right now, it doesn't seem like you have too many alliances right now in music anyway. So would it be a terrible move to go through the acting thing? That money is very different than the money you can command by going on some of these rap tours, especially somebody of like Drake's ilk. And I do believe he could still sell out these arenas. I don't think that's going to change. I don't think he's going to be walking into any half-empty like venues. You could definitely feel a shift in the culture and how a lot of people view like Drake. A lot of casuals like swayed away from Drake, which is wild. I've had tons of comments of people saying that like, oh yeah, they would listen to Drake, but after this, they basically given up on Drake entirely, you know, which is wild. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. Like everyone is one hit away, and it does seem like the Super Soak record, the Mr. Hotspot sample, like it does seem like that definitely could have some motion. Like who knows? Definitely got to capitalize on it while the interest is at basically at an all-time high right now. But yeah, it makes sense that he would drop like Yachty. Even if they're cool, they're probably like, who knows? It might even be Yachty's like idea, like, hey man, if we're really gonna do this, like take me off of this because we know how people get when they hear me on your records and stuff like that. That might be the case as well. Let me know if you guys think they have beef, and also let me know what you guys think about unfollowing people because like I feel like yeah, it's become one of the most disrespectful things somebody can do to somebody because within minutes of doing it, you will hear from somebody. It's wild, man. And if you're at this level, it's going to get posted on every single social media site. Freaking crazy. Definitely hit the like and subscribe button, guys. It does the channel wonders. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys love the video, and I hope to see you guys soon. Who knows, bro? They could all be beefing with him.